Between all the blind dates, the Cub Scouts and Company outings, millions of hot dogs, American flags, music and fun, 9 men on a field are joined by a 10th in the stands. The fans, who've come for over 150 years for atmosphere as much as anything else.
And the babe swings. It's a long one going out toward right center. Singler's backing up against the wall. He can't get it. It's in there.
That ball is going to be out of here. It's gone. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron. The fireworks are out.
Left center field. It's a base hit. It's taken on the second hop. While Ripple, the throw is coming in a second. DiMaggio's racing for it. DiMaggio makes it with a slide and his face.
Barely a teenager, he'd spend 12 hours a day working in the dark. In the light, he'd throw rocks at a tin can from 50 feet away. That's what got him out of the coal mines and made him the star of the 1920 World Series, where he pitched 3 games and won them all. The kind of rags to riches story that's so American, so beautiful, you have to call it baseball. And the only stadium in America that bears his name, right here, in the place he called home. Stanley Kovaleski Regional Stadium, where the South Bend Silverhawks play. And those rags to riches stories still happen, where players like Mike Cameron, Justin Upton, Clay Zavada, Brandon Webb, and Brad Penny got their start. A professional team in our own backyard, where couples on dates, die-hard fans, and moms and dads can take the family for one of America's most enduring and most hopeful of all pastimes, an evening at the ballpark, in the heart of America's Midwest. And this is your team. It's hard to know what was more popular around here back then, the song or the game itself. Organized, semi-pro, and professional teams, a passion sport. Every field, every corner of every town and village throughout the region had been playing the game for nearly 50 years. The Whitecaps, Green Stockings, Senators and Gaelics, West Ends, East Sides, South Ends and Centrals, dozens and dozens of teams. National pastime? Here, it was a way of life. In a place like this, built by immigrants from every corner of the globe, to play baseball was as American as you could be. The equipment was practically handed to new arrivals as they stepped off the train.
It was kind of a stepping stone. Sometimes immigrants to an area would become more Americanized.
The players? Tough. Hundreds gathered to watch the Polish Turners beat the South Bend Goose Pastures in the 1898 Game of the Year. But pitcher George Schmaltzried had other plans. He struck out 18 Turners, hit a 2-run triple, and plucked line drives out of the air like they were cotton balls. For a pitcher with just one arm, Schmaltzried's only handicap was that the local papers could never spell his name right. At the factories, there were so many great players that companies like Studebaker formed multiple teams. Plant number 1, the general office, and foundry teams would play each other during the week, only to field all-star teams to play other factories on the weekends. The game and the players were big, but so was something called the 10th man. Ravenous fans from every city and every town in the region who embraced the game here like nowhere else in America. By the time Singer Company finished building their own factory stadium in 1915, it would see 2,500 screaming fans. Studebaker, over 5,000, rivaling modern Kovaleski Stadium where the Silverhawks play. Major league teams and scouts were so impressed that Detroit, Cleveland, Kansas City, and St. Louis came here all the time to play against local teams in exhibitions, and just as often, they'd take some of our local players right back with them. St. Louis took Ollie Bama from Studebaker. When the Negro Leagues came to town, they took South Bend's Ted Strong, also known as one of the earliest Harlem Globetrotters. When icons like Babe Ruth, Satchel Paige, and Dizzy Dean visited to play local teams and exhibitions, they always made time to visit Kovaleski, whom Ruth called one of the hardest pitchers he'd ever come up against. Michiana's 10th man, one of the reasons that the All-American Girls League took off like a rocket in this town.
I saw him play. I was in love with all of them. Most of them.
But like a lot of cities and towns all across the country in the 1950s, the post-war boom was slowly coming to an end. The factories that once financed America's pastime in this region were downsizing or closing altogether.